All right, good morning. Howdy, howdy. How the heck are you guys? We don't usually dive into politics as my one rule on this channel. Today we're gonna break that a little bit because this thing has got me steaming hotter than a bowl of clams. Because it deals with issues of the church and Don Lemon, who I think is a slippery little snake. You guys tell me what you think. Maybe you can help me digest some of the finer points of what's going on. No fighting in the chat. I know we all have strong opinions. Please be kind. You don't have to be nice to me. That's all I ask. All right, let's dig into this Shiite. Tell me if you can hear me. Let's go. I might not have much to say. I might be just getting buzzed or cleaning my place, but I care about you guys. If you have any questions, I'll definitely answer them. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go on the smooth side.
Gun law President William Kirk, thanks for joining us. Where the heck are we? We're in our hotel room in the fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada. We are down here for SHOT Show
What's up?
2026.
Hey, brother.
And thank
Hey,
you
twin.
for
What's
all
up?
of you who tuned into WGLAM this morning to go over the orders list. Listen, you know, there's really nothing more pathetic in a lot of ways than a disgraced former journalist, if you would, who suddenly is trying to keep themselves relevant. And you thought Jim Acosta was bad. Oh yeah, he was bad. But check out what Don Lemon has done. That's right, we're going to be talking about this very regrettable incident.
What did Don get fired from his news job for? I don't remember. Was it something gross and be getting jiggy with it, or was it like some racist thing? It was some weird thing he got fired for.
That took place in Minnesota a couple of days ago. But more importantly, we're going to talk about how much trouble could Don Lemon actually be in? Is there actually legal liability that he could face? Well, the answer is yes. So today, let's get you all educated and let's talk about how much trouble is Don Lemon in? Okay, America, listen, we're going to step out of our lane a little bit because, again, it's an opportunity to actually explain the application of the law to a set of facts. The set of facts, we're not going to go back and rehash. You guys have seen the video 1,000 times. We are talking about the one, the only Don Lemon and his rowdy gang of protesters that decided to just step inside of a church and interrupt services while they were going Sunday, all because the pastor apparently also works for Immigration Customs Enforcement. Okay, so this is what we're going to talk about today. What he did. Number one, was it unlawful? Number two, can he be prosecuted for this? And number three, how much trouble is he really in? And in order to get you to understand that, we're going to explain two separate statutes, because the truth of the matter is Don Lemon could be in trouble depending on whether or not the United States Department of Justice actually pursues investigation and potential indictment on this. He could actually face trouble from state officials, but we all know there will be no charges filed by the Attorney General of the state of Minnesota. So the two statutes that we're going to get you acquainted with today. Number one is one called the FACE Act, which stands for Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act. Passed in 1994, it is found in 18 United States Code Section 248. We're also going to get to talk about the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871, which has now been codified in several sections, but most importantly in 42 United States Code Section 1983. We're actually going to be talking about a couple of sections just past that. Now, the FACE Act was passed in 1994 in response to a bunch of protesting that had been going on at abortion clinics, some of which actually turned violent. The purpose of the statute was to make that type of activity illegal. However, in a compromise of the drafting of the statute, there was additional sections that were added to the FACE Act. In general, what the FACE Act did was it created federal law that makes it a crime to use force, threats, or physical obstruction to block or intimidate people from accessing reproductive health services or places of religious worship. As a matter of fact, the portion of the statute that Mr. Lemon would be prosecuted under would be Section 2. And that section specifically reads, "It is unlawful for a person to, by force or threat of force, or by physical obstruction, intentionally injures, intimidates, or interferes with, or attempts to injure, intimidate, or interfere with any person lawfully exercising or seeking to exercise their First Amendment right of religious freedom at a place of religious worship. So yeah, it is a crime under the FACE Act to go in and intentionally interfere and obstruct religious services in the house of worship. Now, if prosecuted, how much trouble could he be in? Well, believe it or not, the fines can range all the way up to $250,000, and the term of imprisonment can go as high as 3 years. Are we saying any of this is going to happen to Don Lemon? We don't know that, but that's the application of the law to this set of facts. Now, outside of the criminal context, there actually is additional civil penalties that can be sought under Section 248 of the statute, and that specifically reads, such an action may be brought under subsection A2 only by a person lawfully exercising or seeking to exercise their First Amendment right of religious freedom at a place of religious worship, or by the entity that owns or operates such place of religious worship. Which means that every single parishioner has standing to bring suit, as does the church itself. And knowing, in fact, that no action will be taken by any state official in the state of Minnesota, certainly not the Minnesota Attorney General, Mr. Ellison, can the United States Attorney General initiate these functions? Yes, she most certainly can, because under Section C2 of the same statute, if the Attorney General of the United States has reasonable cause to believe that any person or group of persons is being, has been, or may be injured by conduct constituting a violation of this section, the Attorney General may commence a civil action in any appropriate United States District Court. And for non-violent offenses, they could be civilly fined up to $10,000. So understand that the United States Attorney General has two options here. Number one, they can pursue this criminally under the FACE Act, or number two, they can pursue this civilly under the FACE Act. And then remember, all the parishioners and the religious organization itself could also pursue civil actions under the same statute. And then we get to talk about the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871. Now, this was passed in response to a lot of Southerners that weren't particularly happy about all the slaves being free, and basically had stated that the Ku Klux Klan would serve as the self-defense militia in many of these communities. In order to outlaw many of these activities, the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871 was passed by Congress. It essentially is a statutory codification of the 14th Amendment, which says, hey, listen, nobody gets to suppress anybody's constitutional rights under the color of state law or even privately. You've heard us talk about 42 United States Code Section 1983 because that is where we see a whole lot of civil suits against state actors that are doing unconstitutional things. But very few people know that in this very large statutory scheme, there actually is other actions that can be taken. Section 2 of the statute specifically addresses this exact kind of activity and absolutely makes it unlawful under the statute. But more importantly, Section 6 of the same statute makes it unlawful for any person to conspire, plan, or help coordinate any of the activities that we're talking about here. In addition to that, it also states that if you know these types of unlawful activities are going to occur and you choose to do nothing about it and not notify anyone, yeah, you can be held liable for that as well. If there was just some evidence out there somewhere or some way to launch an investigation to see what did Don Lemon actually know before he went to Minnesota, well, maybe we could pay attention to this post by Nakima Levi Armstrong. We're going to link it up down below, but just to read you the post real quick. Friends, here's a clip of our demonstration this morning at City Church in St. Paul. David Easterwood is a pastor at this church and the acting field director for the ICE office in St. Paul. It's time for judgment to begin, and it will begin in the house of God. And I want you to think for a second just how demented, just absolutely how demented that type of speech is. But then Miss Armstrong goes on to further state, thank you to all of the activists who showed up, plus independent journalists. Georgia Fort, Don Lemon, The Woke Farmer 2, Brixton Hughes. Special thanks to Monique Cullors-Dottie, Chantil Allen, Satara Strong Allen for co-organizing this mission from, and then it lists the groups that actually have assisted in that. So it would appear that Mr. Lemon, at least there is a possibility, was well aware of this. I mean, he did go to Minnesota for a reason now. And when we go back and we take a look at the statutory schemes, which once again is the FACE Act found in 18 United States Code Section 248, as well as the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871 found in 42 United States Code Section 1983 all the way through 1986, is Don Lemon potentially in criminal and civil liability for this outrageous act? The answer is he most definitely is. Now the question remains, what if anything is going to be done by it? And again, as we've mentioned, we know that there will be no action taken by any official out of the state of Minnesota. So will the United States Department of Justice do something, and how quickly will they do it? That remains to be seen. Okay, now listen, we'll go ahead and link up all the statutes down below so that you don't have to take our word for it. You can just geek out on it for yourself.
So, hey Lady Tommy, how are you? So we, it's crazy. So he knew the Christians wouldn't retaliate because Christians are supposed to turn the other cheek, literally and figuratively, and love your enemies and bless them and pray for them and just be stoic and concrete in that decision. But Christians are just human beings like everyone else. On the other hand, at first I was like, oh man, those guys need to be arrested. But they knew at the very least the church wouldn't call the cops, right? And I don't know if they did afterwards, but if they regrouped, put their heads together. But yeah, they wouldn't go into any mosques, Jewish mosques. They're just picking on the Christian. Then he tries to identify with them and say he's a Christian and say, why don't you just love him? Why don't you just let him speak out and blah, blah, blah. He's like, what? What if you were just having a nice, peaceful dinner with your family and relatives, and a bunch of people just came in and just started stomping on the table and breaking the plates and then again, I think the Christians were a good witness because they did show restraint overall. I would have been scared. But if anyone knows what Don Lemon was fired for, let me know in the chat.
If you got any questions about this or about the stuff we normally talk about here, you should know how to get a hold of us by now. But if you don't, that's okay. That information is down there in the description box. If you got an idea for a video, maybe a topic that we want to have covered that's outside the Second Amendment sphere, cool. Click on that link right there. Tell us all about it. If you want to subscribe to our monthly newsletter and see all the cool stuff that they don't let us talk about here, there's a link in the description box to do that. And then finally, and most importantly, let's everyone remember that part of being a lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here, is to know what the law is in every situation and how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching and stay safe.
Mental institutions from where they came. That's all they want to do. They're patriots, and they have to be abused by guys like Don Lemon, who's a loser, lightweight. I saw him the way he walked in that church. It was terrible. I have such respect for that pastor. He was so calm. He was so nice. He was just accosted. What they did in that church was horrible yesterday.
Where are your people? Why are you not at Whipple every day fighting for the humanity, standing for our people?
No, the freedom of the press extends to a lot of different areas. It does not extend to somebody just trespassing and being embedded with a group of rioters and being part of the group that storms inside of a church. So as our Assistant Attorney General said yesterday, we are absolutely investigating that conduct, and the fact that man, that Mr. Lemon, thought that was a good idea to do that and then to race away from it saying it was freedom of the press, well, we'll see. We'll see.
I don't think anything's going to happen to Don Lemon, in my opinion.
Well, if there's a law, can we look up, is there a law against doing that?
Yeah, there is.
It is.
What is the law called?
It's like,
But I want to know what's the difference if someone goes into a wedding and objects to
Well,
wedding.
a wedding is different because
It's
not a house of worship.
Okay, yeah, that's true. That's true.
It's called the FACE Act, the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act. The federal law prohibits use of force, threats, intimidation, or physical instruction to interfere with religious exercise at a place of worship.
Yeah,
Also-
so they violated the FACE Act for
And
sure.
the Ku Klux Klan Act, the
Yeah, I was gonna say
Reconstruction
that.
Era Civil Rights Act that criminalizes conspiracies to deprive people of constitutional rights through intimidation or violence. Officials suggested it could be applied to denying worshipers rights to freely practice religion.
Yeah, the
We'll
white,
give him the book.
the white guy that had the F Trump beanie, him for sure.
Yeah, he
But
was
if you were a
tweaking.
part of it, they sat there and they planned it.
Yeah, they
Operation Pull Up. They should be charged.
And the black lady that planned it, that's what she has to say.
Levy Armstrong helped organize the protest at the Minneapolis church this weekend. Nikema also, by the way, ordained reverend. Okay, so miss her with the what you've been sending me today. These protesters hate Jesus. She's a reverend. All right, just putting it out there. Former Homeland Security Chief of Washington, D.C., Donnell Harvin, and Trump's former acting director of ICE, Jonathan, to go into a place of worship as far as you understand about the video that we're seeing.
Absolutely. We went into
and that is legal. Why? That's the context.
We were invited into the church. The pastor himself is on video calling it a public gathering, a public church service. So we were invited in, and contrary to your opening statement saying BLM protesters busted in, that's absolutely inaccurate. As a matter of fact, most of the people who were a part of the protest were everyday, ordinary citizens who are frustrated with the brutality that we have dealt with at the hands of ICE. And over the weekend, we found out that one of the pastors at the church, David Easterwood, also serves as the director of the field office for ICE in St. Paul at the Whipple Federal Building. Now, as an ordained reverend and as an itinerant preacher, I was shocked. I'm someone who believes very firmly in the gospel of Jesus Christ. And the foundation of that gospel is to love thy neighbor as you love thyself. When you contrast that to the behavior of ICE agents who have done anything but love their neighbor, as a matter of fact, they have killed their neighbor. When Renee Good was killed by ICE agent Jonathan Ross on January 7th of 2026, we realize that there is a dichotomy at work that is unsustainable. How can you be both a pastor as well as someone who unleashes ICE agents upon our community who are inflicting harm day after day after day?
First thing she said, we were invited. Then she backs it up by saying, we were invited because the pastor posted on social media that it's open to everyone. It's an open church service. So that does not mean that he reached out to you guys and told you to come in and berate.
Exactly. She's trying to get off on a technicality. That's so stupid. It's not open to, like, dominate, take over, disrupt, cause fear, panic, chaos. What in the world? I mean, by definition, right? So stupid. You know, and America's so beautiful, regardless of what you believe religiously. The right to assemble. Even the KKK is legal somehow, you know. But, you know, there are people that have crazy ideas, one crazier than the next. But it's so beautiful to think that we have the freedom to assemble by our own beliefs and do our own thing. You know, that's a special thing.
Church service. That means whoever wants to come to church can come. You were not invited to come and do that. That is false. And then to be a reverend, not just someone who claims to be a Christian like Don Lemon, but a reverend. You, of all people, I can't throw stones, but you cannot, of all people, go into another church service because you disagree with the career path that someone in the church has chosen and stop their worshiping and claim to be a reverend. I don't know anybody who would do this. There are plenty of people at my church who don't agree with me politically, but they would never stop me from worshiping.
How could you, Brock? How could you? You call yourself a Christian, Brock. How could you?
Like, bro, this is so wrong on so many levels. But the fact that she, the ringleader of it, is a reverend, to me, that is extreme. But it does say in the Bible, though the preachers and the reverends will be held to a higher standard. So vengeance will be the Lord's.
I just cannot believe this. I really can't. Well, people on the street are cooking Don Lemon. Regular people.
Don Lemon is my least favorite person.
What does she look like right now? What does she look? Hispanic.
Okay, crossing the border illegally is not a crime?
No, it's not a criminal act. It's a
Okay.
misdemeanor.
So why are they being sent back and saying that they're breaking the law?
That's the point.
Okay, as somebody that actually...
We don't know if they're breaking the law because they won't tell. There's no due process. Where's the evidence? That's the whole point. And if they are breaking the law, most people will say, okay, then they need to go if they're criminals. But if they're not, why are they being rounded up and sent out? Especially when he promised to deport the criminals. And now he's not doing that.
Yeah, I don't think we're going...
Misdemeanor is not a crime.
Yeah.
So misdemeanor is not
It's
a
not
crime?
a criminal act. No, if you get charged with a misdemeanor, that's not a criminal
Oh,
act.
it sounds like another Hispanic saying, so this idiot is saying a misdemeanor is not a crime. It literally is, though.
But that's not the thing. Is if you're in the country illegally, then you could get deported. You would know that. I'm sorry. If I went to a country and I was in there illegally, I would know. If they catch me, they will deport me.
If I commit a misdemeanor, but that is literally a crime.
Yeah, she said it's not a crime, why are they charging you? That's what she was saying.
This guy's an idiot. If I get a speeding ticket, that's a crime.
Get charged with a misdemeanor, that's not a criminal
Why
act.
get charged at all then? If it's not a criminal act.
Because we have different levels of crime. Everything's not the same.
So it is crime.
No,
It's just
we have
different levels.
different levels of. No, I shouldn't say crime, but it's not. It's not. You're not. It's not a crime. You're not breaking the law. I mean, you are breaking the law, but it's not a criminal act. No, you're not breaking the law.
The misdemeanor is not breaking the law.
No.
If you're speeding, drinking, get pulled over, DUI.
That's not a criminal act. Well, no,
It's a
if you're
misdemeanor.
speeding, is a misdemeanor.
It's a misdemeanor.
Right.
So it's still breaking the law.
Okay. Well, if you want to qualify that, we're doing semantics. But what I'm saying, but what I'm trying to tell you is everything is not the same. It's all not one thing.
But is it the law?
What is it? The law that what?
Is it a law to come
Is
over
there a
legally?
law?
Is there a law?
There are rules that are processes that you should follow. Yes, so you're breaking rules. You're breaking the rules, but you're not necessarily breaking a law.
So what happened?
Why would he release this?
Then you suffer the consequences. But the consequences should not. Look, no one is saying no one should suffer the consequences. You guys are getting things mixed up.
No, sir, they are not.
He's a fucking idiot. Why would you post this clip? You just exposed how stupid you are and how your argument there is. Just from this to the church people, the lady that set up the church event is a fool.
Oh, man.
She's terrible.
Oh, man.
Trying to say, oh, this was a public gathering. You guys knew exactly what it was when you went in there. When you got in there and started tripping, you knew that was wrong.
Hey,
you're just
bro.
trying to justify it because you're an idiot.
And you're a
this
reverend?
guy is an even bigger idiot. She just cooked him.
Bro.
With his own argument. She said, so if it's not against the law, why get charged? He said, well, different levels of crime. So crime. Then he's like, well, I shouldn't say crime, but it is. You did break the law. She said, break the law. He's like, He couldn't even justify his own argument because he's so stupid.
Don Lemon was on CNN for 17 years.
And Don Lemon is also the same one who replied to Nicki Minaj saying that she should be deported. So illegal immigrants shouldn't be deported, but Nicki Minaj should be deported.
For a difference in opinion.
How is CNN? We know CNN is not credible, but how could they ever be credible when you hired someone like this for 17 years?
Bro, and remember the video we just played the other day of CNN doing a literal documentary on ICE, and they was, glorifying it like it was a regular cool thing in 2005. He was there during that time. He was not singing this tune during that time. They are being controlled. They are being told what to do and what to care about.
And there's a certain degree of entitlement. I think people who are, in the religious groups like that, it's not the type of Christianity that I practice, but I think that they're entitled, and that entitlement comes from a supremacy, a white supremacy. And they think that this country was built for them, that it is a Christian country, when actually we left England because we wanted religious freedom. It's religious freedom, but only if you're a Christian and only if you're a white male, pretty much. And so, yeah, I absolutely 100%, but it's an intimidation tactic. And, I said, I don't understand how I've become the face of it when I was a journalist. I do understand that I'm the biggest name there. And I'm also, as I was on with my producers this morning, you and Kylie talk all the time. My producers were saying, I said, how did I become the face of this? And my producer said, Don, you're a gay black man in America. And there's a certain...
Oh, my God, no. It's because you're Don Lemon, bud. And you said we, buddy. Nobody know where your black gay ass came from. I'm talking about we. You ain't had nothing to do with...
He's acting like he didn't promote it and
we
make
came
it like
from
mainstream.
England. Nigga, not one of our ancestors came from England. I mean, we don't know. We might be a little, Brock maybe a little bit, but
It's always mixed.
I mean, yeah, I could be too. I technically don't know. I could have a Sunny Hostin moment and I'd be 25% white. Who knows, guys? But I mean, this is what the left is saying about this situation. Once again, CNN. I mean, they just aren't credible, guys. They're not.
The activists on the street right now, they feel a kind of helplessness, right? That's how you end up bullying your way into a church. And you've been in that chair. You've been the person who was the activist and felt like lawmakers weren't doing enough. Do you understand their frustration?
This Indian-born woman, she should not be in government. I would never stop saying that. I would even go as far as say the children of immigrants shouldn't be in government. I would never support that.
So she said,
man, the immigrants should only be allowed to be guests. You should only be allowed to work and live. That's it. No government, no position of power, no nothing.
Yeah,
bro,
but that's not gonna happen.
extremists,
But,
bro.
man, she said she understood their frustration.
She understood the people who broke into a church.
Man, what is she again? She a congresswoman?
Yeah, California.
Suck. Oh well, yeah. Hey,
shouldn't be surprised.
Man, the only man on CNN with some sense,
Mr. Jennings.
Yeah, I've been thinking about a couple of things. One, last summer, if I were sitting in a church right now in Minneapolis and a bunch of people burst in, I'd be on edge because last summer a shooter showed up at a Catholic church in Minneapolis and shot a bunch of kids. 2 died. I think 30 people were injured, 26 were kids. And so the terror in that church, I think, is probably warranted, if for no other reason than we've seen radical violence at a church in the not too distant past. We've also seen, I think, attempts to create violence and mayhem and fear in churches around the country, synagogues and other places. And so I feel like the radical left is somewhat emboldened right now to go up to and now into places of worship. It sounds like the FACE Act is what they're going to use. I've also heard today from some sources that the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871, they may look at that for bringing charges to Don Lemon and these radical leftists that went into this church. I think if they don't do something to these people who did this, you're going to see it proliferate in churches across the country, and that will be...
That's a fact.
Big problem.
That is a fact.
Yeah, they need to be charged. For
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, 'cause you can't just do that.
You can't
man.
do that.
I mean,
this is America. There's freedom of religion, whether you agree or disagree, and that counts for Christianity too. It doesn't just have to be Muslims or anything else. Christianity too.
That was a great point, because if people ran in on the church where I was at like that, man, and I had my piece on me, I would have been a little afraid. Like, I'm gonna be real. The guy with the F Trump beanie, oh man, they lucky they didn't get shot. Honestly, if security
that
was
went
in
down
there.
at my church personally.
Man, that's
we
all I
have security at my church.
Hey, I'm gonna be real. If they was at a black church, oh, they would have been. Hey man, people would have had them in there tied up for real, for real. You don't run in no church and disrespect the pastor. That's insane. But hey man, we got a new black brother on CNN. Apparently he cooking. He a conservative.
Totally disagreed. Because of what a pastor does for a living or what they're involved in politically, gives no one the right. There was a child in that video who was sitting in their father's arms, shaking, confused, trying to figure out what's going on when these people burst into this church. And Lee, what I would say is people have a First Amendment right and the ability to go and protest against ICE. If they don't like ICE, be my guest, go protest. But those people in that church, I would say and, not but, those people in that church absolutely have a First Amendment right to gather and worship the God of their choosing. And I'll say a point here is it is actually Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the day that we recognize his contribution to the country today. His mother in 1974 was shot and killed in a church because of political violence, because the KKK wanted to insert their political will over a community. This is remarkably similar to that. I remember my great-grandfather telling me stories about church bombings in the South. Remarkably similar to that. Everyone at this table should have
So the protest is similar to the person getting
Let me finish,
shot,
please.
but
Everyone
the
at this
person getting
table,
shot is
everyone
not.
at this table,
Right.
please, should have absolutely no issue saying that this was wrong, it was reprehensible behavior, and this is not the appropriate way that we address our grievances in this country.
So
Full
which
stop.
innocent people are and are not allowed to get shot as far as you're concerned?
That's not what I'm talking about. People have a right in this country, regardless of what your political convictions are, to worship freely and safely, and no one should watch a child on camera like what we saw trembling in their father's arms
Wait
because
until
of
you
your
see
political
what ICE
convictions.
does to children
I'm sorry,
and their families.
Your political convictions do not overstep someone's ability to worship safely
No,
and
but
securely.
stop making it about worship. Did I call that into question?
I'm sorry,
saying,
guys.
if you're
I respect
talking
you,
about
but there's
children,
no but. There's no but.
There's
here.
a
It's
little bit
full
of a
stop
different
thing.
issue because
Damn.
Yeah, bro. He instantly went to, well, what about that? What about that?
No, that dude actually cooked that dude.
That's insane.
Yeah, I can't believe it it's coming
You can't
down to
justify
this.
this. If you justify this one, stay away from me.
Yeah, shout out Tim Parrish. He cooked them. He kept it 100. They tried to deflect and have false equivalencies, and he dead at that. I respect him for that.
He said,
Shout out
"There's
to
no
him.
but, no but here." Like, how are you taking up for Don Booty Lemon?
Do you believe it was a step too far for protesters to go into a church?
I don't. I think that when they find out that someone that's supposed to be speaking for the community in church is found out to be an ICE, like a federal agent that is running ICE in their communities, they have the right to go in there. Churches have always been an open door. And from my understanding in the videos that I saw, those protesters were not violent in any way.
These people are the same people calling the right divisive because of comments that Trump says, but yet you condone someone running into a church because they don't agree with you. Who is truly divisive? Just being real. Whole white supremacy.
Yeah, white men are evil, he says. I'm a Christian, he says, but he has a gay white husband.
Cock sucking. That's
Did you really
insane.
tweet that? Yes.
Cock sucking lemon.
I
Wow.
said she should be
brother.
deported.
Hey, Nicki Minaj is a real one, bro. Wow. She the best female artist that ever was. I do not like DL Hughley.
Oh, yeah, man. The protest is fundamental to American society. This country started in a protest. And, it's freedom of expression. People have a right to lift up their voices and make their peace. And none of us are immune from the voice of the public. So quite honestly, I think that you got the First Amendment, freedom of religion, and the First Amendment, freedom of expression. And I think that, it's just something that you gotta live with in a society.
Yeah, nah, but there's right and there's wrong, and these people are wrong, bro, and that's that. Man, I honestly
And if you
can't
back
believe
it, you
this.
wrong.
Like, I mean, think about, hey, if I was in real life with someone and and we were talking about the situation and they agreed with what happened to the people in the church, I literally would not look at you the same anymore. They got black people online blasting Don Lemon. Like, I mean, it's bad, man. I don't see it. You have to be a super extremist. You have to be super extremist to think that was okay. To condone that? Come on, bro. Yeah, something has to be done, man. I mean, hey, Scott made the
Face
best point.
act, bro.
Like, it's been people that have been killed in churches.
Yes.
So to run in there, causing commotion in a church, you don't know what nobody was thinking, bro. Like, I would be terrified if you came in my church screaming, running, and run up to the pastor. You just seen that video earlier, the guy walking up to the pastor with the gun.
Yeah, we reacted to that a long time ago.
The bishop got stabbed a couple years ago. Wasn't it the same dude? I don't think it was the same dude. No, this is a black guy that they got the gun pointing at up, and it was the famous bishop that got stabbed. Like, that type of stuff is going on. So, I mean, I don't know, man. They should have thought about this. I mean, the black lady talking about they let the doors open. It was an open service.
That's church.
She was the leader of it all. She is a deacon, or what did they say she was? They said she was a reverend. Yeah.
That's a pastor. You yourself are a pastor. You see,
You know better.
There will be many false prophets, but you will know them by their fruits.
Yeah, guys. I don't know. This is insane. I think at first I was like, I don't know how they're gonna charge him. I don't know how they're gonna get him. But
There's a law for that.
Yeah,
they ain't doing that around
That's
here.
pretty bad. This was bad. I
would love to see him be charged. That would bring joy to my day.
Hey, man, he gonna have a good old time in jail too.
Oh, he gonna have fun in there.
Yeah, I mean, hey, that's no what. It ain't gonna be no white meat, but you know.
Yeah, or you should have to pay a huge fine if nothing else. I mean, if what they did was under the Protected Protesters Act or whatever it's called, then anyone could just interrupt anyone at any time that was assembling for any reason, and the world would be complete anarchy and chaos. So you have to have some rules, and people have to have some right to assemble and enjoy a nice service of whatever kind it is, church or otherwise. So I don't know how they're going to really defend it. It's just... must be a crazy extremist. And now the black people even are mad at him. But he used to be, I guess, a hero to gays and blacks because he's both. But I don't know what he did to get fired. I'm going to look it up. Thanks for the thumbs up thingy. Ding, ding. It's supposed to play like a little squirt sound effect or something.
Might be something fun, but we out of here.
And you know what's right and wrong, right? You know where people can't touch, where people can't eat. Yeah, you know that, right? Does Tim ever do that?
All right, now we're going to launch into, since I don't have a lot of commentary to say, I'm just going to watch this anyway. It's this is a good little channel, Long Crime Sidebar with Jesse Weber. But this is trigger warning, sensitive content.
No, he's never touched me.
Never touched you?
Yeah.
In the case of actor Timothy Busfield, who's been accused of child sexual abuse, this is the new audio of one of the child accusers initially claiming that Busfield didn't sexually abuse him. Coupling that with Busfield's new court appearance, where he has been fighting to be released from jail ahead of trial, there is clearly a lot to break down right now. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. All right, before we get into this, look, it's January, and I will tell you the smartest people are mastering the skill that matters most this year in 2026. What am I talking about? AI. AI is going to be at its peak in 2026, and this is your last chance to get on the AI ship. What am I talking about? Outskill. Outskill is the first ever AI-focused educational platform for AI learning. They are hosting a 2-day AI mastermind training live this Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern, and right now is the perfect time to join because you can get in free for their New Year Upskilling Fest. This is a 16-hour AI training that has already built 10 million plus AI professionals across all industries, and by the way, is rated 4.9 stars on Trustpilot. You're going to learn to build AI agents that plan, write, and execute for you, automate workflows, connect tools like Sheets and email to create systems, save hours every week, and get a boost at work. You are going to learn to also profit from these skills. People from this training have launched AI services that bring in $2,000 to $3,000 a week. By the way, you're also going to get the AI Prompt Bible, the AI Profit Roadmap, our AI Toolkit Builder, and the 2026 AI Survival Hackbook. This is a guide of upcoming AI shifts and steps to take to be prepared. Seats are limited, so use the link in our description to join, plus join our WhatsApp community to stay updated. Big day for actor and director Timothy Busfield, appearing in New Mexico court for a hearing to determine whether or not he will be released pending trial on child sexual
I'm gonna
abuse
check that shit out.
charges. But the
It might be a
68-year-old
scam,
has
though.
been charged with 2 counts of criminal sexual contact with a minor and 1 count of child abuse for allegedly inappropriately touching 2 11.
Yeah, I'm just in a relaxed, total chill mode. You guys can ask whatever question you want. It doesn't have to be relevant to the thing. I'm just watching this for just the heck of it. Then I'm doing a vertical dance stream after this for a promotional thing. And later we'll do the real content. But I just need to be a space cadet in the mornings while I warm up a little bit. But still, you guys can be cool because I'm in a good mood mostly. But if you see me dancing, I've got music blaring in the background while I'm trying to clean this dump.
Child abuse for allegedly inappropriately touching 2 11-year-old twin child actors, boys, on the set of the Fox series The Cleaning Lady from a few years ago. And this is, by the way, where he served as executive producer and director. One of the boys claims that he touched his private areas. According to a therapist, or according to therapist notes, this boy has been diagnosed with PTSD and anxiety. In fact, according to a 13-page arrest warrant, the boy had, quote, nightmares about the director touching him and waking up scared. And so when it came time to determine whether or not Timothy Busfield would be released pending trial, here's what happened.
Now, to be clear, at the time of this recording, they haven't made a decision yet in terms of if he's going to be released from jail pending trial. But just to give you an idea, here's a snippet of what one of the prosecutors had to say about Timothy Busfield.
The state is requesting that this court find the defendant dangerous and that there are no conditions of release that this court can impose to secure the safety of this community. Pretrial detention is not a credibility trial. It's not a civil damages dispute. nor is it the studio's internal investigation. It's whether the defendant is dangerous and if the court can impose conditions to secure the safety of the community.
Every aspect of the state's case is flawed. Every aspect of the state's case is questionable. I don't need to tell the court this, but my client is presumed innocent. As he sits here today, he is an innocent man. And I have significant concerns about the prosecution talking as if he has already been convicted. She referred to the people who wrote letters of support. She said, quote, "They don't believe when victims come forward." It's our legal system that starts from the position of saying, we don't believe. It must be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. The question before the court today is the court going to hold Mr. Busfield in custody pending the trial in this matter, if we ever get that far? There has not yet been an indictment. It wasn't simply that the children did not disclose sexual abuse. They flat out denied it. They said, no, it didn't happen. The fact is that the criminal complaint in this case is slanted. It is slanted to bolster the state's case and omit exculpatory evidence.
Now, here's what I want to talk about. I want to put all of this into context because before that hearing came up, before that decision was made, there is a lot about this case that just came out. A lot to talk about since our last episode of Sidebar. Because this one, I have to tell you, is not so black and white. This one feels a little different. Because I'll start with this. This just came out. Originally, the boys were interviewed by authorities in November of 2024. This is when police were called to the University of New Mexico Hospital. The allegation was the boys were groomed by Timothy Busfield, who they apparently called Uncle Tim, that he would tickle them, talking maybe 7 or 8 years old. But now this is important. They initially denied that anything sexual happened. And that is important because just now, Busfield, as part of his push to be released from jail pending trial, he had these audio tapes of the interview released. And I want you to take a listen.
So, you know what's right and wrong, right?
Yeah.
You know no one could touch your private areas?
Yeah, but he didn't touch that part.
Doesn't touch your private parts? Okay. Okay. And you know what's right and wrong, right? You know where people can't touch, where people can't do. Yeah, you know that, right? Does Tim ever do that?
No, he's never touched me.
Never touched you?
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that, okay? We're going to talk about that. But to be clear, let's be clear about something. Victims, or alleged victims, there are times they will first deny being abused. They may say it never happened. There's a number of reasons that can happen. And they might not mention it and then come forward months later, days later, years later.
Yeah, because especially at that age, your brain is still developing, and your first design is to go into denial if something out of the ordinary happens because you just want to be like your friends and everyone else. So that's like they said Diddy's mom ran a brothel service growing up, so he just got used to seeing guys going in and out of the house, and he normalized it in his own mind in order to deal with it and compartmentalize it. You know what I mean? So that's a normal thing. The brain first goes into that denial phase. Yeah, that's crazy to think.
That happens. But there is two parts to this, right? It does go to credibility. There could be a situation where they're not telling the truth, and there might be motivating factors, and that's what we're going to get into. But even so, I mean, this has to be considered. This has to be considered because I have to get into a lot of the things that Busfield has been bringing up. You know, since there was no further evidence of sexual contact back in 2024, the investigation really didn't go anywhere. That was until October of 2025. That's when things changed because the boy's mother apparently filed a report against Busfield with CPS, Child Protective Services. And this is when one of the boys then claimed that Busfield did in fact touch his private area over his clothes and was, quote, afraid to tell anyone because Tim was the director and he feared Tim would get mad at him. So after conducting these interviews and reportedly talking to some members of the Cleaning Lady production crew, an investigator in this case secured an arrest warrant. Now, in anticipation of that hearing to determine whether Busfield would be released pending trial, his team submitted an over 200-page filing to get out of jail. And a big part of that filing is seemingly trying to tarnish the credibility of these two boys' parents. And this is new from the last time we covered this. So in Busfield's filing, arguing again that he should be released, he claims essentially that these parents are fraudsters and stage parents. You're talking about parents who have been identified as Angel LaSalle and Ronald Rodas. And they even cite how, according to them, LaSalle allegedly was heard saying to somebody that she wanted to get, quote, revenge on Busfield, potentially because the boys were replaced by another child actor in the show, that's what the motivation here is. Quote, the state offers no reliable proof, only allegations advanced by witnesses with documented histories of fraud and financial exploitation, contradicted by a comprehensive studio investigation and refuted by witnesses and objective risk assessments. I'm going to get into all that, but the prosecution's case, they claim, the defense claims, quote, rests almost entirely on the accounts of two stage parents. They're not neutral observers. Their allegations emerged only after the loss of the twins' role and only after consultation with civil counsel, creating an obvious financial and retaliatory motive. That motive must be evaluated against the couple's well-documented history of fraud and dishonesty. So what is Busfield referring to with respect to these parents? Well, Busfield claims, if you take the father here, Rodas, essentially the claim is, the allegation is that he changes his story when money's on the table, and that he's doing this for financial gain, saying Rodas, quote, is a former attorney who was convicted of federal conspiracy and wire fraud and was later disbarred following that prosecution for a multi-million-dollar scheme in which he used his law license to deceive vulnerable victims for profit. And they cite how Rodas previously pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud, where he reportedly, quote, defrauded more than 1,500 homeowners of approximately $6 million. And that, again, is according to the filing that was obtained by outlets like People magazine. But Busfield also cites in this filing how apparently a member of the Cleaning Lady production crew, who apparently knew Rodas, called him, quote, pushy and manipulative, and that he would, quote, frequently encourage and tell the children to hug people on set, including Mr. Busfield. So you're kind of seeing where a defense may be going here and what we might see at a trial. But what about the boy's mother, right? Busfield is not only going against the father, he's also going after the mother. So Busfield claims that she, quote, has had multiple civil judgments entered against her for fraudulent and dishonest behavior, claiming that she was sued for, quote, various claims including fraud, conversion, fraudulent transfer, and making the allegation that she illegally repossessed a car, that she wrote bad checks to casinos. Quote, the fact of the matter is that the parents driving the allegations against Mr. Busfield have an extraordinarily checkered past that casts enormous doubt on the truthfulness of their statements. The timeline does not indicate an investigation naturally unfolding, but instead an express effort to seek revenge against Mr. Busfield after losing the lucrative opportunity that came with their children's acting on The Cleaning Lady. Now, I'm going to get into in a little bit if any of this is going to come into a trial, but it is important to talk about in the context of this whole story, and by the way, in terms of, him trying to fight for his release. I do have to cite something else, though. I think this is important. So apparently, Warner Brothers, who was a partner in the production of this TV show, also had an independent outside investigation conducted. And apparently, that investigation found, quote, no corroborating evidence of inappropriate conduct. And in Busfield's opposition filing, he even claims that the investigation, quote, found not only that allegations against Mr. Busfield were unfounded, but also that LaSalle, the mother, after hearing that her children might not be returning for a fourth season, stated to the show's lead actor that she would, quote, get her revenge against Tim Busfield. Now there's more. In the filing, his legal team argued that Busfield recently passed a polygraph test. And this is when he was asked questions about these allegations. They also claim that the findings of a psychosexual evaluation concluded that Busfield, quote, does not appear to have a sexual attraction to prepubescent or adolescent males or females. Is this relevant to the case? We'll talk about that too. And then I got to mention this as well. You have Busfield's wife, actress Melissa Gilbert, Little House on the Prairie. So she writes a letter to the court in anticipation of this detention hearing. And you don't see this every day, okay? Sometimes family members, they choose to remain silent. They say, I'm not going to say anything. I just want to respect our family's privacy at this time. Apparently submits a letter to the court saying, quote, Tim has the strongest moral compass of any human I have ever known. He has dedicated his spiritual self to always being of service to others. He starts every day with kindness and compassion. And every single set where Tim is working, multiple people come up to me to tell me he is their favorite director ever. Your Honor, this is the strangest letter I've ever had to write. I'm trying to toe a line between logic and all the feelings swirling through me. I began this letter with logic, but now the feelings have taken over. I can't help it. I only want this extraordinary man safe and whole. And then you have the prosecution. So first, you can even cite the detective who looked into this case and in the paperwork in support of the arrest said, in my training and experience, pedophiles often infiltrate families under a trusted role like Timothy, who as a producer exploited the hectic film sets to essentially sexually abuse and masked it as play. And prosecutors, they also cite to what they call Busfield's, quote, documented pattern of sexual misconduct, abuse of authority, and grooming behavior. And they cite previous allegations against him, like how back in the 1990s, a 17-year-old accused him of sexual assault on the set of Little Big League. Or how about in 2012, when a 28-year-old woman accused him of groping her in a movie theater. Now, to be clear, there were no criminal charges that were ever filed in connection with either alleged episode. And by the way, that also includes this other allegation because it just came out that the father of a 16-year-old girl came forward saying that Busfield sexually assaulted his daughter several years ago, and that at the time, Busfield had begged them not to go to the police if he promised to go to therapy. Again, no criminal charges were filed in connection with that. Now, I will tell you, Busfield's attorneys also fought back against that. For example, with the 17-year-old, they claim they have a witness who will say or has said that the girl's father had this TV pilot that he wanted pitched and allegedly said they're going to love it because Tim Busfield is going to present it to them, which I'm certain he will do because he will need to if he thinks he's going to bleep my daughter. So obviously credibility is at the center stage of this case. The fallout, though, despite all of that, has already been intense because he's fighting two battles here. The battle in the court of law and the court of public opinion, right? So NBC chose not to air an upcoming episode of Law & Order SVU featuring Busfield. TMZ just announced that he's being edited out of an upcoming Amazon MGM film, You Deserve Each Other. His agency, Innovative Artists, apparently he's been with them for years, dropped him as a client. So the fallout has been intense. With all that in mind, let's discuss. All right, let me bring in criminal defense attorney from New Mexico, John Day. John, thank you so much for coming on to talk about this. I mean, this is right in your jurisdiction. I'm so happy to have you on. I have to tell you, the allegations are incredibly disturbing. I mean, there are cases that are built purely on the testimony of the accusers and sometimes child abuse accusers. I have to tell you, though, there are aspects of this that I think give you pause. And the audio comes out. Let's start there. The audio comes out. There's one thing to read that in November of 2024, they described what initially had happened, this kind of tickling, this Uncle Tim denied that there was any kind of sexual contact. But then you hear the audio. What do you think the value of that audio is? What did you take away from it?
Right. Well, thanks for having me. There's so much to unpack here. Initially, this audio, and it's a police interview of the two young boys. And the officer's very direct, asks the boys, did Timothy Busfield touch you in any inappropriate way? The answers seem very direct. The boys say, no, he never touched us. So apparently after that, within a year after that, according to the district attorney, the boys had gone through some kind of therapy, some kind of counseling. And there were, according to the prosecutors, disclosures that were the opposite of that. But when you listen to this initial audio, there doesn't seem to be any hesitation. The boys are really clear when they deny that there was any inappropriate touching. And of course, the defense, Busfield's defense, is using this to push back real vigorously, of course, and to the idea that somehow Busfield committed these crimes. And not only does it apply to the charges, but this is what Busfield's team is using to try to convince, of course, a judge to let him out of custody pending trial, which could be a year down the road. So a strategic release of discovery by Busfield's lawyers, they think it's going to really help them.
They're incredibly aggressive, even in this initial stage of the case, because he's fighting two battles here, right? He's fighting a battle in the court of law and the court of public opinion. I mean, I think a big part of this we've seen with celebrities before is they don't necessarily just remain quiet. He, before he even turns himself in, films a video denying the accusations. His lawyer puts out a statement denying the accusations. They file this over 200-page opposition filing, really trying to tarnish the credibility of the parents. And I'll get into that in a minute. There is two things here, right? When you listen to the audio and you hear the fact that the boys initially in November of 2024 didn't tell authorities, one way could be, yeah, this is not true. The parents pushed them to come forward with it, or they really didn't admit what actually happened to them. And sometimes it takes therapy, and sometimes it takes someone to make them feel safe that they can come forward and say what actually happened to them. I imagine that might be difficult for a jury to consider, but in your perspective, do you think that there is still a strong possibility that these boys were abused, and it makes sense that they didn't initially come forward with the abuse allegations?
So I've prosecuted a lot of these cases when I was a prosecutor, and that's true. That's a thing. The idea that there can be disclosures that don't occur until after there's an appropriate level of counseling, an appropriate level of treatment by a medical professional. So, you've got to remain skeptical throughout this entire case. I think of both sides, of the prosecution's case and the defense case, because there's so much here. It's a he said, she said case where the defense has to try to systematically undermine the credibility of all the he said people. They're going after not only the fact that there's this tape, this audio of the boys denying any touching, but in their pleadings, the defense has also gone after the parents, alleging with a factual basis that the father was a former lawyer in California who lost his law license. He had been convicted of fraud. They alleged that the mother's engaged in fraudster activities. They're really trying to systematically undercut the credibility of the parents who brought this. And they have a lot of detail that backs up the defense. So I'm skeptical, as I always am, in going into a case. But in this case, the defense has a lot of ammunition